Yo, welcome back to another episode of On the Spot Sports. I'm Jack, and today's episode we're joined by a very special guest, Elmhurst University cross country and track coach Jordan Bartolazzi. Barto was my cross country and track head coach for 3 of my 4 years while attending Elmhurst University, and while I was competing on the cross country and track team. Barto has also spent 4 years running at Elmhurst College at the time, now university, when he was in college. So it's been a I've been meaning to have you on the show for a while now, so it's good to get you on, Barto. But welcome to the show,
Man.
Jordan Bartolazzi.
Thanks, Jack. It's good to be here. This will be fun. This is my first podcast ever. So
Let's go.
I'm
glad
honored to start with you.
glad to be the first one that you're on. But
Yeah.
it's weird calling you Jordan instead of Barto or
Yeah,
coach.
no,
But
Jordan's fine.
how have things been with you and the team, Barto?
Yeah, good. So we just finished our conference meet last weekend, and preparing for regionals week from tomorrow. So we're kind of in that fun time of year where it's championship cross country season and also the start of track and field season. So and today's funny. I was out at 6:15 with the boys doing a cross country workout, and then track practices at 11 and 1 that I popped into and said hey, and then 3 o'clock women's distance workout. So it's a full day of coaching.
Oh yeah, love it. What workout did you put the boys through today?
Yeah, they did a just kind of like a little bit of a tune-up. So they did 35 minutes easy running together, and then they ended on the track, and we did 6 quarters and 6 200s. So yeah, it's
So it's
a
not
little bit
not too
fast,
bad.
not too much, no. So yeah.
Yeah, but they're gonna hate me for saying this, but I'm glad I'm not doing any of those workouts anymore. But I still enjoy would hop in for one, even if I've given the
There
chance
you
to.
go. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But you've been a coach at Elmhurst since you got your coaching job. So
Yeah.
how did you exactly get into coaching, and as well as like running, because like it's a huge passion for you.
Yeah. So I mean, the running story, and I guess kind of the coaching story, go all the way back to like young years. I think the summer before 5th grade, there was a guy going door to door from our high school cross country team asking people to come run a 5K as a fundraiser. And my dad and I ran it together that summer going into 5th grade, and I loved it. And then I just kept running road races, and I ended up really plugged into the road running community as a 5th grader down in Springfield, Illinois. And so that is what sparked my love of running. And then when I was going to enter 6th grade, I was excited to be able to run cross country, and I had been doing like summer running with the high school team going into 6th grade. And the cross country coach resigned, and there's basically nobody left. So I went to this tiny little school. So my first year running cross country as a 6th grader, boys and girls, middle school and high school, we had 2 people on the team. I was one of them, and my best friend Travis was the other. And so honestly, I think that there probably would not have been a cross country team if I didn't ask if I could do it. And so what happened was I basically talked my dad into becoming the coach. My dad had coached me in soccer and baseball and basketball and everything. He knew nothing about running, but he basically said, sure, I'll drive the bus around. So I joked that like my love of coaching started then, because as a 6th grader, I was reading books about running and trying to figure out what workouts we should do, because my dad really just had no clue what he was doing. So anyway, that was how I got started in running. Continued to do it all the way through high school, and then it guided my college search, which is how I landed at Elmhurst.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
that's an awesome story right there. Like you, like just being one of 2 people on the team, like that must have been an interesting experience. And how did you react to that? Were you just you 2 running all the time, or what?
I mean, it was fine. Like I didn't know anything different. It was like so you know me pretty well. It was me and him, and then by the time I was in high school, we had 17 people, and we had our first full boys team we'd had my whole career, and that was fun. So yeah, I mean, I think it was just kind of one of those, it is what it is, and I had fun and tried to keep getting better, and it was cool to see our program grow from what we started with 2 people up to 17 was the largest we ever got.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just like, what was that experience like throughout high school, since you were with the high school from like sixth grade on? So just being able to just grow and develop and see that program develop into 17 runners, like you said.
Yeah, well, it was fun. I like, because I started as like, one of 2 people and the guy that was trying to figure out workouts, I felt like I had some ownership of it. But then, um, like I was a competent 1A runner, which translates to like I was not very good and not very special. But we had some windows there where we had some decent teams. One of my childhood best friend was also named Jordan, and he was a very good runner. And so we did have a couple teams when I was in high school that were competitive, and we had a 4x8 relay that went to state a couple years, and I got to be part of that, and a cross country team that we never qualified for state as a team, but there were a couple years there where we gave it a shot. And so yeah, it was cool just to kind of be part of a growing program.
Yeah,
And
it's always good to see the program develop from like an athlete standpoint. And then when you get into coaching and just seeing like how like the Elmhurst program has grown since you started to where it's at now, like
yeah,
just to be able to be in every step of the way there, like that must be an amazing experience. And just going through it myself, like it's awesome to see where the program is now.
yeah, well, thanks. I think we've gotten lucky. We we have no, I appreciate that. Like it has been so fun to see our program grow and become more successful. I think I inherited a gold mine with the people we got here, and then just we're able to recruit the right people in the
Yeah.
subsequent years that helped us really get this thing off the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you, not only as a coach there, but you also ran at Elmhurst College. So like, what was those 4 years of running collegiately? Because everyone like at the high school level wants to run collegiately, and you got that opportunity too. It's like, what was that like?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think about now how much. I mean, I wouldn't go back to college. I'm glad I'm done, and I
Me
enjoy the
too.
life I have now. However, I cherish my time here, and I still like laugh hysterically at some of the memories we have as a team, and just getting to spend time with those guys. And yeah, like Will Cross, who was my teammate, was inducted into the Hall of Fame a few weeks ago and was back on campus, and we were able to have some teammates come and be part of his induction that night. And so, I mean, I felt like I was back in college, just reliving memories and laughing till my stomach hurt with those guys that night, thinking about just how much fun we had. So yeah, I loved being on the team here. Coach Akita, who coached you your freshman year, was the reason I chose Elmhurst. At least one of the big reasons I chose Elmhurst, and I love that guy. And I think he was a major influence. And so, we're thinking back about the friendships and relationships I have with teammates is something I cherish.
Yeah. So like, what do you learn from guys like Will Cross, then Akita as well? Like they're both like, they both know their running stuff, and Will Cross obviously in the Hall of Fame now. Like what do you learn from them, especially going throughout like the college process?
Yeah. Well, I think both of them are really cool examples of what can happen in our sport when talent matters, right? Like they're both
Yeah.
really talented people. But I think both of them are also such good examples of what can happen when you are really committed to something and willing to chase after it. So I got to see that development in Will firsthand. He came in and he was injured his freshman year, and like we knew when he committed here, I was 1 year older, that we knew we got a really good runner. But his freshman year, he wasn't a special runner. He was coming back from an injury, um, and I think like he would say his times he ran weren't that impressive, but the guy wanted to be great, and he still does. And like we got to see what happens when somebody gives it everything they have, right? And I didn't have that kind of work ethic. And honestly, like I was a Division III guy. I think if you ask my teammates, they'd say I was a good teammate and I was committed and I wanted to get better, right? Like I put a lot of effort into wanting to get better. But to be as great as Will was requires kind of a singular focus and dedication. And those kind of people are really fun to be around. I think they elevate the room, they make you want to be better. And frankly, they're fun to watch. We had some women last year that you were teammates with that I feel like were similar. Like they made up their mind that they were going to be special, and then they chased it down and committed to it.
Yeah, it's contagious when you have people on the team like that, because like it makes everyone from like top to the bottom, doesn't matter if you're the best runner, the worst runner, like you're just gonna, it goes up the chain and everyone's gonna work even harder for your teammates and for everyone in front of you. And like from my time there, like there's a lot of great examples I could throw, like Jeremy, and Matt, like Gilly, all of them, like you Alita, you go through the list right now, and like all of them made it very contagious and wanting you to work hard, and like it just keeps going up the chain when you have that commitment throughout the entire program.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right on. I think what I love about those names you just listed too is like them as great runners, and I do too. But just amazing people, like the kind of people you want to spend time with, right? And like
anytime you can hang out with them, you're going to.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, but then you graduate from Elmhurst College and now you're a coach there. It's like, what drew you to the position of coaching the women's team at first before you took on both guys and girls?
Yeah. So I kind of had an extremely unorthodox route into head coaching, one that I feel so fortunate for. So I graduated from Elmhurst. I moved into an admission counseling role. So I was the person in charge of recruiting student athletes. So I'm kind of walking them through the financial aid process and admission process. I did that for a few years, and I got to know the coaches over here and got to know the athletic director well, and it was kind of like a crash course introduction into collegiate recruiting. And it would have been 2017. That was when the women's head coach here left in January, and Coach Akita took over the women's program as an interim coach in the spring, and coached them through track season. And so as Steph and I, my wife, we were in Colorado, and at the time I would have said I was pretty positive I was gonna, like, someday I want to be the dean of admission at a small private college. Like I wanted to just climb an admission and kind of be in charge of enrollment. Wasn't too interested in coaching necessarily, but I've always loved sports and I loved my job recruiting athletes. And Steph, who also ran here on the women's team, we were hiking in Colorado, and I was like, I think I want that job. And it was like, honestly, the first time that I had pursued anything or even thought about coaching. And so I reached out to Paul Crone, who was the athletic director at the time, and he knew me well. And I told him I was interested. And so, to be honest, at the time, the women's track team, there were only six women, I think 6 or 7 women on the roster back then. And my whole argument about why to hire me was, no, I don't have lots of coaching experience, but I've been here in admission. I've been recruiting for the last 3 years, and you guys have gotten to see me do a good job of that. So it doesn't matter how good a coach is. If there's only 6 athletes, the track team won't be good. And what you need is a recruiter, and I can learn to coach. And that was honestly like the point I made. And I'm thankful that Paul agreed and gave me a chance to take over our women's program. Yeah, and it was awesome. Like I love it. I feel so grateful. I think it's a really rare thing. Like I don't take for granted that Paul took a giant chance on me. I think you don't usually hire full-time coaching positions, especially head coaches, with people with very little to no experience. That was me. And I am so glad he did, and so appreciative of getting that opportunity.
Yeah, that's an awesome background story. It's like, what have you noticed from like the start, like when you have like 6 athletes to now, when like just going throughout like the last like 5, 6, 7 years that you've been coaching, like how has the program like developed, and just you seen it like firsthand with like your coaching? So like how is that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for inheriting 6 athletes, that's not a scenario any coach wants. That, and we're talking track and field roster, right? Like some of those athletes that we carried over from that season into the next, people like Becky Garcia, Liz Delgado, Gabrielle Murdoch. Um, those women are, people always think that I would jump to telling you about, Spadlowski and Emily Gilligan and Emily Clausen and Ali Mondrella. And that's true. Like those women built this program. Um, but Liz and Gabrielle and Becky, they were freshmen on that team, and then they became sophomores my first year coaching, and they like truly welcomed me as a coach with open arms, and they just wanted a fun team where they were cared for, and like they wanted to be pushed and challenged. And so I think as the returners, they laid the foundation for where this program was going to go. There's absolutely no like, that's not how we do it mentality. It was just like, tell us what to do. We want to be good. Tell us how to do it. And so I give a lot of credit to Liz and Gabrielle and Becky, who were never part of like a championship team, for kind of laying the foundation. And then of course, that first year we recruited Alita and Bella Wolke and Ali Mondrella, Jenny Claudio, Emily Clausen. And you have, I think at Division III schools, the way you got to be successful is sometimes you just got to get lucky. And we recruited a kid named Emily Gilligan, who was a pole vaulter who hated pole vault, and an average 200-meter runner. And she graduates college as a 4-time conference champ or 3-time conference champ, national qualifier, amazing person. And so I think just getting that group here who decided, like, we wear this story out, but Alita saying after finishing 8th in the conference as a team, and she was like 50 something overall as a freshman, she looked Molly in the eyes, our assistant coach, and said, we're going to win conference, by the time I graduate. And like those girls just kind of set their face, and they were on a mission to go do that. And so anyway, I know that involves like, you got to coach well. Like I know you got to build the right culture. You got to put the right people in, but truly, I think what a gift it was to inherit that group of athletes and then bring the right people in to say, we want to go do this.
Yeah, and just having a good culture like also like helps it, because everyone wants to go to practice, no matter if it's 6 a.m. Like we had practices and like
I don't always
just workouts and everything. Yeah, and it's just the culture is just like we said, contagious, and like everyone wants to work harder. And then like just by them saying they want to win conference, which they did in 2021 with my senior year, it's like, what was that year like, since like the championship banners behind you? Like, what was that year like?
Yeah, I mean, it was magical, Jack. Like that, last year, so conference mate was, I think one thing we forget was like the year wasn't actually going that well. Like those girls came back, they wanted to win, like they had decided what they wanted to do. But people forget that the meet before conference, we took you guys to Ohio. We didn't take Emily Gilligan with us. We left her behind. Alyssa Refuse collapsed at the finish line and was in the hospital in Ohio. And Natalia, if she was here, she'd be okay with me saying this. Natalia ran just a really non-Natalia race. There was no reason to believe that 2 weeks later we were going to run the conference meet we did. And so we go to conference. Molly and I are driving home from Ohio thinking like, oh my gosh, we thought we could win conference, and now we'll be lucky to get like 4th place. And instead, we go to the conference meet, St. James Farm. We score 35 or 30 points, and Wheaton was second with 75. I mean, we put 5 women in the top 10 overall. So our entire top 5 was first team all conference. No other school had 2. They had all 5. Like they just ran, honestly, like the greatest race we could ask. So that was special. And I don't mean this to be like cheesy, but I think what made it special was getting to do it with those women. I think like the stories that I know and that I have gotten to share with Alita and Gilly and Clausen and Nat and Alyssa being part of that too. And I think that group who made that commitment to each other, that they were going to do everything they could to win a conference title for each other, to then actually see it happen and the way that they did it was, I hope I coach for 50 years, right? And I'm convinced that if I do, I'll still remember that day, and just how special it was to get to do it with those women.
Yeah, exactly. And like that team was special. Like just like both squads, like guys and girls.
Yep.
The guys are gonna hate me if I don't say this, but we went from 8th place to 7th place that year.
Yeah.
8th place every year until that year. So like, what was it like taking on the guys from my sophomore year on?
Well, that's such a good question. And it's actually, I mean, it's been so challenging because I think you have this women's program that's kind of like obviously getting a lot of the focus and a lot of the attention. And I was their coach first. Um, this sounds terrible. I didn't want to coach the men. Like when the idea of combining the programs was presented, I didn't like it at all. I, I think there's a few reasons for that. Some like more personal and all, but like I also think that who I am, I'm like I want to be, at least I want to be a relational coach that
Yeah.
builds trust with athletes. I think that clicks really well with women's teams generally, and I think it's a little harder to foster on the men's side. So anyway, all that to say, like it wasn't always easy. Like I loved Coach Akita, who was my coach and the coach right before me on the men's side, and you guys loved Coach Akita, and so like that transition was a tough one. And anyway, I think I'm proud of, like, when you think about those guys, like your class, you and Jeremy and Andrew and others, and like the strides that we took, not just in running, but also in building a team culture and growth and trust and those things. Yeah, I think it was really cool. I think it's still something. I don't know how to do this. And this year our women took a step back also. So it's challenging when you have a team that's at the very top, and is trying to go to nationals and can win conference. And then you have another team, men or women, that's not at that level. It's always a tricky balance to, like, I don't want to diminish the accomplishments of this group that's finding a lot of success, but I also don't want this other group to feel like they play second fiddle all the time. So I don't know that I have arrived at that answer yet. I think it's something that every year is a challenge to figure out how to coach each group based on where they are. But I'm trying. I think we're doing our best, and I think I guess maybe one last thought on that I feel thankful for is, like, our men and our women's teams really, they do feel like one family, and they're two distinct teams, but they really are supportive of each other. And our men want our women to be successful and vice versa. And I think that's something I feel grateful for, that while I'm personally trying to navigate the balance of how do I coach both rosters, I think the teams themselves really feel like they are each other's biggest cheerleaders and supporters.
Yeah, absolutely. I would 100% vouch for that and everything, just from my experience. And even now, like when I come back, like still the same feeling and everything. And like the culture is definitely there and everything. So like how important is to have that culture? Because like I think that's one of the things the guys wanted. Like we wanted to go from like not having 8th place to 7th, 6th, whatever.
Yeah.
But we also want to have a good culture and everything. So like how important was that culture to like bring like a one family together?
Yeah, well, I mean, cross country, right? Like cross country is such a unique. Sorry, I didn't think to plug in my computer before we started, so I'm gonna do that while we talk. Cross country is such a unique, like, the type of people who are attracted to this sport in general are, like, team culture has to be a huge part of what you do in cross country. And why else would you want to be up at 6 a.m. running for 2 hours with people? Like, if you're not committed to them as teammates and feel like you're working towards the same goal, it's going to be really hard to care. And so I think oftentimes we pit success in running against team culture, and we say, like, well, caring for each other is what we really want to do. Things work hand in hand, and you're not going to find a team most of the time, right? Like sometimes talent does trump, and that's a real thing, but most of the time successful teams like being teammates, and they want to work hard together, and they want to accomplish goals together. And so I think you can't have one without the other. And I guess like this year we graduated 4 of those 5 women from last year. Alyssa was returning from injury. We lost a lot of senior leadership from our men's team with you guys that left. And one thing I feel thankful for is like we're not having quite as much immediate kind of in your face success as a team. We have a really good team, and like they're really fun to coach, and I like they know what the goal is. They're committed to still getting there and continuing to improve. And so I think good effective team culture is one that can, like, every year you have to continue to invest in it, but it can sustain you through years of like the results aren't quite where we want to be. Our team is awesome. Like they're really fun to coach right now. They like being at practice. They like each other. They're working hard. They want to get better. And so in years where the results aren't exactly where you want to be as a team, it's really nice that we have this really good group that's really committed to continuing to improve.
Yeah, and the culture is huge, especially because as a runner, it's a mental battle at times between wanting to wake up, and then like when you have like that culture, you go to practice because your teammates are there and to hang out with them and run. And then the same thing with like when you're on the course and you're dying the last 3 miles, like you're just doing it for everyone in front of you and just trying to push yourself and push the next person in front of you, and it just keeps. Just the culture is like what changes everything, like brings everyone together as like one family.
Sure. Yep. I totally agree. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So then you go in. So then, like for this part of the show, I want to go into recruiting a little bit here. So like, what do you look for like when you do recruit runners, and like what are some like the biggest factors you see?
Yeah, I think I've gotten more refined as not that I'm old, but I've been done it a few years now, so I think I have learned a few things. I think it's so easy to get tied up in results, what they ran in high school, and that like obviously matters, right? Like if you give me the choice of a men's miler at 4:20 or 5:20, I'm 10 times out of 10, I'm going to pick the 4:20 guy. So like that does matter, but I think I'm really trying to figure out in the on-campus visit, in their time with the team, is this somebody who loves running? Do they want to get better at the sport? I think that's a really key thing to figure out. I think if that answer is not really, or it's questionable, it's really hard for that person to go on for 4 more years and have a successful career when they're doing cross country, indoor track, outdoor track. So we do try to get at, do they love the sport? Like, yes, being fast is great. It's fun to coach fast people. Like I didn't get into coaching so I could have, fun team chance. I got into coaching so we could be successful. I want to help athletes get better and win races. Like that's what I like about that sport. But I think a love of the sport really does matter. And like if you look at our roster last season, I think we had on our top 7, only Alyssa Rafuse would have been in our top 7 based on high school PRs. Everybody else got that much better in college. And so, I think that there is a component to like talent matters, but also do they love running? And are they going to be a good teammate? Like, I think that you got to identify, like, do they fit with the culture we have, and are they going to care well for their teammates?
Yeah, exactly. And like just being like good teammates and everything. Like I've interviewed tons of professional athletes, coaches, and all that, and like everything comes back to, are you a good teammate? Because 10 times out of 10 times, like sure, you could be the most talented, but if you're not going to be a good teammate, no one's going to want you.
Yeah,
and I think that's the biggest thing there. And then going into your coaching philosophy a little bit here, like what is your coaching philosophy, and like how do you like help your runners be successful?
Yeah, well, I always tell recruits, like, if you want, I'm pretty young, and so you might misinterpret that for meaning I'm like cutting edge, and I'm not. I am like, I tell guys, like, if you want sexy training, don't come to Elmhurst, because that's not what we're gonna do. We're gonna do like basic things really well. And so like, in terms of the training itself, I want to help athletes get better over time while staying healthy. Like, you give me healthy athletes that do the simple basics of running, they develop aerobically over time, they're going to be successful collegiate runners. So we just try to do the basics and do them very well. Like, I want to be better at the basics of running than other places are. And then I think that when you take that smart, like science-backed training, and you add it to an environment where an athlete feels invested in, like they want to do their part to help the team, and they're convinced that their coach and their team love them, like that is the recipe, is like good, smart coaching that keeps you healthy in an environment where like love is at the forefront. Like, we love you, you love being part of this, and you want to do it for other people. I think that's what drives who we recruit and how we're successful. And I think that if you can't do those things, if you can't feel like you're part of something, you can't work for other people, it's going to be hard to be successful in my program, because I think that's kind of the core of who we are.
Yeah, so simple is better and basic is better. Just that's the recipe to success.
Yeah, you guys heard me wear out like over the phrase I said. Running is not easy, but it is simple, and we differentiate between those two words. So simple, running is a simple sport, but it doesn't make it an easy sport. It's really, really hard. Like, it's the commitment it takes is really hard, but we're doing the simple stuff the right way.
Yeah, and that's what's gonna lead to that success. So that goes into, I have two more questions. So like, what are some things that runners can do to help like increase their times, and like whether it be like how they feel at practices, how they perform, and then reach that next level?
Gosh, there's, broadly, there's so many different things I could say. But I think, to give a basic answer, I would say sleeping and eating. You knew I was going to say that, right? Like that.
So two things you preach.
Got kids obsessed with getting faster, and they can't figure out why their 800 time isn't improving, and they're writing papers at 3 a.m. and playing video games, and they don't work. So if you're not in a good sleep rhythm, you're just not going to work. And then, anytime I have a platform to say it, I will. 99.9% of the conversations that happen about food in our program are about eating more, not eating less or different. So I really want to eliminate the mental construct around good foods and bad foods. I don't like that at all. Like, a salad is not better for you inherently than something else. That's just, we got to eliminate good and bad. We just need to eat to fullness. And I think so many, especially in college, right? You're in a hurry all the time. It's like 4 years of being perpetually in a hurry, one thing to the next. And you're running in the dining hall and running out of the dining hall. And so I think the more that we can, get people to refuel their bodies after workouts, to eat meals and snacks to fullness, like, that's going to help too.
Yeah, and like those are two of the most important things I would say as well. Didn't learn that until probably my end of junior year, going into senior year, but I definitely did learn that, and it definitely does help your performance, and just getting enough sleep and eating the right things, like the good nutrition and everything, like it does help.
So you mean playing midnight hockey games isn't going to help your 1500 that weekend, huh?
Yeah, I learned that the hard way. But I have one more question. If there's one thing you want your athletes to learn from you, what would it be and why?
Oh my. You haven't stumped me all day, but I need a second to think on that. Maybe I'd frame it around like, I hope you would say this as a guy who was here for 4 years. Like, I prioritized integrity and doing things the right way. It's so fun to win. It's so it is. It's fun to run new PRs. Like, I want to help you get better, but I do think I have failed if you guys graduate 4 years later and you're not any better people. You're not more prepared to be a father someday if you are able to have kids. You're not, going to be an employee somewhere who makes other people around them better people. Like, I think that what I would love is this idea that people come here, they're here for 4 years, they graduate, and then they like go out and they're like people with integrity and care and compassion, and they make people around them better. I don't do that very well. um, I I certainly, fall short of that all the time, but it's at least the desire I have is like to be a guy of high character that makes other people know their value and believe that they are valued. Um, so anyway, I guess that's like what I would hope to instill in people. I think sometimes we do better than other times.
Yeah, just leave college a better person and
For
and
sure.
a better quality person. But Barto, this has been a lot of fun. I'm really glad that we were able to get this going. But I appreciate your time, and I want to wish you and the team a lot of success in the near future.
All right, man. Thanks so much. Great to do this with you. I appreciate it.